My name is Paul Marquis. I will be your song leader this morning. Up on the platform, our music team. This morning we have Hal Hobson on piano. We have Neil Lensenmeyer on bass and Carolyn Keeble behind me in our percussion section.
How about special music today?
Please stand if you're able and join in singing our opening songs, Share Your Light and God Is My Source.
Share your light.
Also.
What's this one? It's good stuff.
Yeah, I was so ready.
Rise on up, the time is near. Remember who you are, the reason you are here. Share your light, live from the heart, illuminate the world, you can do your part. Lost and all alone, I was out there on my own. I could hardly find my way. And then I heard a voice inside of me say, rise on up, the time is near. Remember who you are, the reason you are here. Share your light, live from the heart, illuminate the world, you can do your part. The ego voice was strong, my attitude was wrong, my mind had gone astray. And then I heard a voice inside of me say, rise on up, the time is near. Remember who you are, the reason you are here. Share your light, live from the heart, illuminate the world, you can do your part. So I sought to find a place filled with spirit and loving grace. That's why we're all here today, because we heard a voice inside of us say, rise on up, the time is near. Remember who you are, the reason you are here. Share your light, live from the heart, illuminate the world, you can do your part. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, love gives me everything I need. Joy is my source, joy is my power, joy gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, joy gives me everything I need. Peace is my source, peace is my power, peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, peace gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need.
Thanks, Paul.
Well, good morning. My name is Lynn. I will be your platform assistant for today. Thanks to everybody who helps make this service possible today, people who work throughout the week, Sunday morning. And that'd be our script team, hospitality, bookstore upstairs, which after service you can buy some script, have a cup of coffee. And our audio and streaming service, ushers, PowerPoint, youth leaders, and of course, our wonderful music team, which Paul introduced this morning. We've got some new folks. And a little bit later in the service, a couple times we will have our special music will be Taylor Crow, and I'm really looking forward to hearing that. So that's going to be pretty wonderful. If this is your first time here, we are glad that you have joined us this morning. There is a card in the pew pockets in front of you that you can fill out and give to an usher when you leave the service today. They have a small gift for you. And please join us for coffee after service. If you haven't turned your phone off already or put it on silent mode, please do so. Let's run through a few announcements. It's spring, which means projects all over town, but in particular, there's going to be some that will affect how you get to and from church. So just pay attention, allow some extra time to get wherever you need to go, including church. Choir rehearsal is tomorrow, 5:30, and then the choir will be performing on Easter Sunday. So then Reverend Judy's talk today is going to be on In Defense of Judas. That's a continuation of the spring book study. So that will be this morning. And today, after service, at 11:30 in the classroom down by the door, the side doors here, where the prayer group meets. I'm sure there's a name for that room, Classroom A, I believe. But that's where our book group is going to meet at 11:30. We're going to talk about our book, The Warmth of Other Suns, which was a fabulous read, and I'm certainly looking forward to our time together with that. So again, 11:30 in the classroom down at the end of the hall. And then on Easter Sunday, Reverend Judy will be talking about the Great Demonstration, again as part of the spring book study. And then later on in April is the Walk to End Homelessness. Join our team. You can join it on the Housing Resources, Inc. website. Look for the Unity of Kalamazoo team and sign up. The walk is April 13th. So, and the piano always sounds good, but let's give a special thanks. Yatlam tuned it for us this week, and that's always a So thank you for that. And if you will now join me as we go through our mission statement and vision and core values. Together, as an all-inclusive community, we awaken to spirit, grow into our souls, and build a better world. And our vision statement, where we celebrate a world of ever-awakening consciousness, abundance, peace, and love for all. Our core values of love, authenticity, oneness, and playfulness. And our land and labor acknowledgement. Our spiritual community acknowledges Black, Indigenous, and people of color whose lands and labor were forcibly taken. We pledge to promote understanding, equity, justice, and inclusivity. And a blessing for all children everywhere. As you go your way, know that you are loved, special, and important to us.
I am a child
Thank you, Paul. So this is the time in our service where we take some time to just get quiet, to turn inward and quiet our thoughts and quiet our minds and just reflect upon really what it means to be a spiritual person, a spiritual being, and to find that divine light and presence within us. And so the word for today is Palm Sunday, because today is Palm Sunday. And in the daily word we read, as I enter Holy Week, I reflect on Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem and how the multitudes greeted him shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." Like so many, I have used the sacred time of Lent to cleanse my soul of beliefs and habits that no longer serve me. I have felt blessed as I have opened my heart to the healing, cleansing waters of Spirit. Now, I feel ready to welcome a greater awareness of the Christ within me. Every part of me quivers with eager anticipation. The world seems fresh, and I feel newly alive. I behold the Christ in me, and I behold the Christ in all others. With joy, I celebrate. With gratitude, I humbly bless the Christ in me and in everyone. And from Matthew chapter 21, verse 9, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." Our affirmation for today is, "The Christ within protects and clears my way." I'll repeat that once more and then invite you to join me the third time through. The Christ within protects and clears my way. Together, the Christ within protects and clears my way. And so I want to begin this time of reflection with those words from Matthew. "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." And blessed is the one who shows up in the name of the Lord. Blessed are we when we show up as the Christ. The entire ministry of Jesus was dedicated to helping us find and understand our own divinity, the kingdom within. And he wanted us to know that it was in each and every one of us. That he was nothing special. That whatever he had done, we could also do. In fact, he said we could do greater things. And so he dedicated his life to teaching us about our divinity, the kingdom within. And that is why we say, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." And that is why we strive to show up in the name of the Lord and as the Christ that we are. And so as we move into a few moments of reflection and prayer, I invite you to think about how you're showing up. There are probably 1,001 very gentle, kind, loving, and compassionate ways in which you are showing up. You're showing up for others. Are you showing up for yourself? Are you bringing that same kindness, that same love, that same compassion and forgiveness to yourself? And one of the beliefs that we can all let go of, because it doesn't serve us, is that we need to get better. We're not enough. We fall short. We miss the mark. And while it's true that no one is perfect, it is in the trying, it is in the Spirit of the Christ showing up in us, through us, and as us, that we become all that we are meant to be. So on this Palm Sunday, I invite you to praise that Spirit within yourself. Praise your intention to show up as that Christ consciousness. Do try, and try again. And to bless yourself and love yourself, so that you may indeed bless and love others. And so I invite you to let my words be your words for just a few moments in prayer and reflection in the silence when we say, I bless the Christ in me. I behold the Christ in me, and I bless the Christ in me. You bring your attention and your focus back to this place. I just invite you to continue to celebrate that, to say Hosanna, to be blessed by that Christ within, that divinity within, the kingdom within, and all the ways in which you bring that into the world every single day. Because you are enough. and you always will be. And for that, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Amen. Thank you, Taylor and Hal. That was absolutely lovely. Don't you just want to kind of soak in that for a little bit? Yeah. Okay. Well, I promise not to get off to a real kind of a start this morning. We'll keep it nice and soft for a little bit. Welcome, everyone who is here with us this morning, live and in person, and everyone who's joining us via our live stream as well. It's great to have you all here. Somehow, the snow hasn't fooled my sinuses. They still know it's springtime and there's stuff in the air. So I'm going to try to get through this with a minimal amount of disruption. So far during the month of March, my talks have been incorporating the teachings of Eric Butterworth, who is one of Unity's most popular authors, and the book that we're studying, Discover the Power Within You, is also his most popular book, his best-selling book. He wrote a total of 10 books altogether, so if you've been reading this one a little bit, you like it. One of the things that I hear pretty consistently from folks is that he's far more readable than some of the original writers in Unity. And he is indeed, because he's a bit more of a contemporary writer. But he also wrote, he wrote Spiritual Economics. He wrote Unity, A Quest for Truth. The Universe is Calling, and another really nice book, In the Flow of Life. Discover the Power, in particular, which is the one that we've been focusing on this month, it unpacks and reinterprets the teachings of Jesus as they are described in the 4 primary Gospels of the New Testament. And in doing so, it leans heavily on chapters 5 through 7 of Matthew, which is where we see the full accounting, the most lengthy accounting of the Sermon on the Mount. And as you probably know, regardless of what your orientation, religious upbringing may have been, Sermon on the Mount contains many of the primary teachings of Jesus. It includes the Beatitudes. The Lord's Prayer is part of that accounting. And there are lots of parables that are within Matthew's writings of that that are very well known to us. They deal with anger and retaliation and how we treat our enemies. It deals with marriage and divorce and adultery, worry and judging others. There's the lilies of the field as part of what's incorporated into Matthew's accounting of the Sermon on the Mount. And there's also some parables in there about money and compensation and charity. So what makes this book really helpful is because of the timelessness of those topics. It's like this is stuff that comes up all the time for us. Marriage, anger, worry, money, these are issues that we deal with all the time. And they can become especially challenging to us when the people with whom we are dealing around these issues don't always see eye to eye with us, right? That happens from time to time, right? We have disagreements, right? So this book in particular, I think, of all the ones that Butterworth has written, is particularly helpful because it kind of really gets at some of these core teachings and therefore gets at some of our core beliefs. Oprah Winfrey has been quoted as saying that this book, in particular, Discover the Power Within You, has completely changed her view of life and religion. And I would have to say that based on some of the conversations I've been having with you all about this book, it continues to deliver a lot of really good, thought-provoking messages, some perspectives and really helps us, I think, make peace with many of the religious teachings that we grew up with. By restating and reinterpreting a lot of what we were taught and coming back to a perspective that says this isn't a religion about Jesus, these are the teachings of Jesus. What was he really saying? And his whole message of the divinity within each and every one of us is absolutely central to the presentation of the material in this book. So on the traditional church calendar, today is Palm Sunday. And so for my lesson today, I selected the chapter from Butterworth's book that examines in detail the final week of the ministry of Jesus. And it's called In Defense of Judas. So as we've discussed before, the ministry and the life of Jesus came to an end in the city of Jerusalem, where he had gone with his disciples to celebrate the feast of the Passover. Like many thousands of other people, they made the pilgrimage to Jerusalem to celebrate this feast. His decision to make this pilgrimage, along with thousands of other people, put him squarely in the path of the brutality of the Roman occupiers, and also squarely in the path of the oppressive practices of the temple leaders. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along here. But if you remember, he entered triumphantly into Jerusalem. That's what the palms are all about. That's what Hosanna is all about. So many of his followers who were coming with him were converging with all of the other people who were coming to Jerusalem to celebrate that same feast and festival. And people were just really, really uplifted by his message, uplifted by this sacred journey that they were making, and it was really quite a celebration. Hence the palms, the Hosanna, and the triumphant entry into the city of Jerusalem. But once he got there and he got to the temple, he was completely frustrated by what he saw. He came into the temple area and found it filled with money changers and folks who were selling stuff, mostly animals. And the temple priests had set up a pretty lucrative operation for themselves, whereby you really needed to purchase favor in order to be able to worship. And so, as everyone came, first stop was the money changers, and then the next stop was to go purchase whatever it was that you wanted to have sacrificed in your name, whether it be a dove or a goat or whatever. But Jesus comes into the temple and temple proper and sees this absolute chaos and marketplace environment, which is far from sacred and far from honoring all of the things about that feast and that celebration. So suffice to say that he's absolutely livid by what he witnesses there. And in frustration, he begins to overturn some of the tables of the money changers. The moment he did that, he became what I like to call a clear and present danger, right? We know what that means, a clear and present danger to both the Romans and to the temple authorities. And what existed at that time in that culture and in that city was this unholy alliance between the occupier, which was Rome, and the oppressor, which was the temple structure and leadership, both of which this unholy alliance creates this backdrop than to what turns out to be a really unfortunate but serious miscalculation on the part of Judas. So let me explain. Like Butterworth, my grown-up understanding now of the life and times of Jesus, having studied it and studied it in depth at ministerial school, is that Judas was not a traitor. I mean, he's been given every bad rap in the world, and even people who aren't religious know what it means to be a Judas, you know, to betray someone, to be a traitor. But I don't believe that he was. If anything, when you go back and you look at all of the accounts and the relationships that existed within that core group, if anything, he's possibly the most devoted follower of Jesus. And there's evidence to suggest that Jesus really, truly, heavily relied on him, much more so than the others, to get things done and to take care of business. We get so tangled up in the myth and the mystery and the magic and the mysticism of early Christianity, which, again, is that religion about Jesus rather than of Jesus. We don't even think about some of the more practical aspects of what it meant to have this ministry, to grow this ministry, to be traveling around for 3 years with this message, preaching and teaching. Jesus and his team, they needed to eat. They needed to have a place to stay at night. They needed money for their travels, and they needed money for supplies. And Judas was the great organizer who took care of all of that stuff. You might want to consider him to be the road manager, you know, the business manager of the group. But he's the one who really had it all together within that group. And rather than paraphrase it, I'm going to read to you the way Butterworth describes Jesus, because I want you to feel it and hear it the way that I did. So this is again from Butterworth. It says, to set the record straight, Judas was one of Jesus' closest friends. Jesus believed in him, saw great possibilities in him, personally selected him as the one who could be of great help to the cause. And let us never forget that, like all of the disciples, Judas gave up everything to follow Jesus. And because of his obvious sophistication and intelligence, he may have had to give up far more than the others in the group. We're fishermen, and remember, and, you know, just kind of really, in many ways, just a really kind of ragtag group of guys, you know? But he describes Judas as a man of strength, of vision, and of dedication. He was ready to sacrifice place or position in the world for a dream. If he was ambitious or selfish, the gospel writers never mentioned it. For it was James and John who argued with each other over who was to have the post of leadership when Jesus came into his kingdom. They even told Jesus they wanted to be seated at his right hand and at his left hand to signify their role as the heirs apparent. And all the while, Judas was quietly and efficiently doing his job. He was probably the most talented, the most educated, the most businesslike of all the disciples, and thus he was appointed treasurer for their little company. And he had the job of looking after their affairs and of making provisions for their needs. He was the practical-minded man who was taking care of the mundane things while the remainder were building blue sky dreams, which they probably did not even understand. And as later events would indicate, they really didn't get it. For 3 years, more or less, Judas lived with Jesus and in the company of the band of the disciples. He had so established himself as the stable one of the group that when Jesus announced that one of them would betray him, nobody apparently suspected Judas. He was the level-headed and the steady one. Anyone but Judas. It's important here to recognize that all of the disciples had a little different shade of understanding of Jesus and what he was about. None of them at this point really understood. Even Peter, who had had that flash of great insight when he saw the Christ, and he saw the divine in Christ, but he still did not understand that Jesus' real mission was to bring the message of the divinity of man to all the world, that he was building a kingdom or a new order in the mind and in the affairs of man, but it was not a political kingdom that would involve the overthrow of the government. So that's the portrait of Judas that Butterworth shares with us and is well documented if you look at what is or isn't written about Judas in the rest of the Gospels. So what then happened to turn this all around? Well, as Butterworth suggests there right at the end of that reading, the confusion about the real mission of Jesus on the part of his disciples, his followers, the religious leaders, and the local Roman authorities got to the point where it was completely out of control in Jesus' final days. Everybody thought something different was going on. Jesus had come out of the countryside, and he had set the minds and the hearts of the people on fire with his message about the kingdom within. He was loved and he was admired. He was feared and he was disliked. And in the end, he was mostly misunderstood. The council of the local religious leaders who managed the temple and the nearby synagogues was called or was known as the Sanhedrin. As I mentioned, they had used their positions of power and authority to implement a complex system of cultural norms and rules that they employed to establish a lucrative marketplace within the temple where the pilgrims and the worshipers were required to use their money to exchange services to buy animals for sacrifice and to access the temple itself. The Roman occupiers didn't give a whit about what Jesus believed or what the Jews believed or practiced. The only thing they were concerned about was order. They were sticklers for order. And crowd control was always challenging for them during the week of Passover. But now with this Jesus factor that was really amping everything up, things were going south, and they were going south very, very quickly. And again, Judas was probably the number one fan of Jesus. He honestly believed that Jesus was going to be the ruler of a new kingdom on earth, and that Jesus would be even better and stronger than David, better and smarter than Solomon. He would just run circles around those guys who were so beloved and had been the best of the best in terms of leading the Jewish people. And Judas was not the only one who believed that the goal of Jesus was a political solution to the current occupation and the current oppression. The Sanhedrin feared a loss of influence and income, the Romans feared a loss of order and control. And what motivated Judas was his fear that Jesus was going to lose the momentum of the movement. He was going to let the window of opportunity close, and he was going to do it by virtue of sheer inaction. Judas was watching all of this as they came into Jerusalem with all of this great momentum, and it's like, come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. And it wasn't happening. Butterworth speculates that the leaders of the Sanhedrin probably approached some of the disciples, possibly all of the disciples, looking for someone who was willing to cooperate with them, someone who would be willing to let them know about Jesus' whereabouts, where they could find him, where they could get their hands on him. And at the Last Supper, Jesus observed that one of them would betray him. And interestingly enough, none of them was really sure of themselves. If you remember, they all said, "Is it I, Lord?" It's like, what does that suggest? Jesus did not condemn Judas while they were together at that meal. And as the meal continued, he actually leaned over to Judas and said to him, "Whatever it is you're going to do it quickly." Jesus then sat back and somewhat later also said to the rest of the group, "Before this night is over with, you all will betray me." Judas thought that his actions, his cooperation with the Sanhedrin, would force Jesus to use his powers in his own defense. He had been with him for 3 years. He had seen what Jesus could do. And he had no reason to believe that Jesus wouldn't do for himself what he had done for everybody else. He had every confidence that when push came to shove, Jesus would dig down deep and demonstrate, okay, this is what I'm all about, and I have power over you. He thought that's the way it was going to happen after he had tipped off the authorities. It never occurred to him that Jesus wouldn't use his powers in his own defense. It never occurred to him that Jesus would choose not to demonstrate those powers to those who were most challenged by his presence and by his teachings and by his followers. And once Judas realized that he had miscalculated what Jesus was trying to accomplish, he was heartsick. But by then it was too late. And so one of the closing comments that Butterworth makes in this chapter is this: for us, the only root of sin that we hold in our hearts and minds is not knowing our divinity. When we don't get what we're all about and why we're here, that's pretty much the biggest mistake, the biggest miscalculation that we can make. This divinity in us and this whole is the whole and perfect activity of God. It's the ceaseless longing of the Creator to work it out and bring the manifestation and perfection of creation into all that has been created. He just wants to see us be the best, right? Because that's what we're here for. That's what it's all about. Our divinity, our potential perfection, this kingdom within us. Jesus wanted us to know that, to understand that, and to live from that. It's the lesson of his life. And he dedicated his life to showing us how to discover the power within us. He invited us to do greater works. The lesson of his death is that our personal will and our material, worldly focused thoughts must go. In fact, all of those agendas and misinterpretations of what we're really here for must die, so that the true essence of our divine nature may live. God bless you, and have an amazing week.
Thank you, Reverend Judy. I'm Karen Colson. I'm a member of your board. For everyone here and everyone at home, please join me in our board affirmation. I release all to God. My spirit is peaceful and free. And now, as the ushers come forward, would you please join me in our offertory blessing? Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
Thank you, Taylor. That was just beautiful. And how? Good job. Let us hold the following thoughts in prayer. Loving Spirit, we are grateful for the many blessings we experience in our daily lives. We are thankful for the gifts we receive today and throughout the week, and we affirm that these we put to good use for our highest good here at Unity. We continue our prayers for all people facing challenges here in our community and throughout the world, and we continue to imagine and to see and to pray for a world at peace. May we all be comforted by that vision and by the Christ consciousness within our hearts, and so it is. And now, as we bring our service to a close, I invite you to stand and join me in our prayer for protection. Oh, nope, you're okay. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The presence of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And now we'll close with our peace song. If you're comfortable, you may join hands with your neighbor. Otherwise, just place your hand on your heart and connect within.
All are we. Let me